Hey, thanks for listening. This is Julie Hoffman. I am one of the founders of the Okanagan Real Estate Investment Group, or OREIG, and we thank you for listening. OREIG was created to provide education and a regular place for like-minded people to get together. So I hope you enjoy this recording. If you want any information about membership or how you can possibly access some of the training that's involved, or even talk to me as a real estate investment coach or potentially a real estate investment partner, feel free to reach out at www.okanaganreig.com, and look forward to talking to you. In the meantime, enjoy the recording, and we will see you next time.
We're starting over because we can. My tech wasn't working. Now it is. So, welcome to the Okanagan Real Estate Investment Group meeting. February 2024, we're talking about registered mortgages, okay? And tonight's interesting for those who are listening to the recording. We have one attendee. His name is Ivor Shanks. He is an insurance salesman.
Property liability insurance.
Property liability insurance salesman. So you make sure and talk to him if you're looking for property liability insurance.
Yes.
What's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can email me at ivor@summitcover.ca.
Ivor@summitcover.ca, and his link will be around here so that you can get in touch with him.
Sure.
All right. So we're talking about using registered funds such as RRSP, TFSA, RESP, locked in registered account, or a LIRA. And I just started working with an RRSP, which is a registered locked in savings plan, which I haven't worked with before, but it's pretty exciting. We are going to talk about examples of borrowers and lenders, and so I'm going to be talking about both, but this is going to be person to person, so no more mortgage brokers involved. I work with people privately, and I teach people how to do that as well. So before we started the event, Ivor and I were actually talking. Anybody with a registered savings plan can actually become a mortgage on a property, and I'm going to get into how that works and some of the mechanics. So, self-directed RSP, that is where you take your RSPs that are currently in Sun Life or Bank of Montreal, CIBC, wherever they are, into a self-directed account. I use Olympia Trust or Canada Western Trust. There are others. I'm not familiar with them, so I don't tend to speak about them. So we're going to be focusing on actually just Olympia Trust tonight, because that's who I've worked predominantly with over the last 5 years. In fact, we've raised over $4 million. No, between $3 and $4 million just in RSPs, so that we can invest in real estate, and we've grown people's money close to $500,000. Safe, secured, set rate on dirt, bricks, and sticks, meaning real estate. I borrowed in first position and I borrowed in second position. So what happens is you take your self-directed account, you take your account and you move it into a self-directed account at Olympia Trust. Yes?
When you talk about first position and second position, what do you mean?
So when I talk about first position and second position, that's a good question. Most people have a first position mortgage in the property they own, whether it's their personal residence or an investment property. Usually it's TD, Bank of Montreal, RBC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Most of the mortgages that I do that are self-directed Olympia Trust RRSP mortgages are in second position. So you can have a first mortgage, you can have as many mortgages on your property as you want. There are some limitations when it comes to self-directed mortgages, but you can have as many mortgages on your property that you can make work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be talking about first, second, and third position primarily here. Okay. So a mortgage is an investment on real estate. So if you have, say, a Bank of Montreal mortgage as your primary mortgage, that's an investment for the bank, because what do you pay the bank? You pay the bank interest and you pay down the principal usually in a mortgage. Actually, mortgages, a mortgage by definition, a portion of every payment goes toward paying down the principal. A portion also goes toward paying the interest. And in a self-directed RSP mortgage, you can have it be amortized. That means some goes to principal, some goes to interest. You can have it be interest only. You can set whatever your rate you want within certain limitations, and it can be in first, second, or third position. It cannot be after third position. All right. So when you do this, when you move your registered account, whether it be TFSA, RRSP, RESP, into a self-directed account, it stays a registered account. Most people's biggest concern is worrying that they are withdrawing their retirement funds, which can have significant tax consequences. It can. You have to talk to your accountant. I am not an accountant. I do know, though, for sure, when you take a registered account from where it is, like I said, whether it's like Sun Life, TD, RBC, wherever you invest your RSPs currently, that's mostly going into the stock market, probably. When you move them into a self-directed account, they stay a registered account. There should not be tax implications at all. And if you are told that, I would get a second opinion, I'd get a third opinion, I definitely talk to me, because I've been doing this for a long time, very successfully. All right. Now, what this does, it gives you freedom of what to do with your retirement money. You can invest it yourself in the stock market, or you can decide to put it in real estate. You can put it with an exempt market dealer. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Now, again, you have freedom. You have control. With that control comes great responsibility, because now it's on you whether or not it's going to grow. So again, you can invest it yourself in stocks. I know a lot of people who do that. They invest their retirement funds on their own in stocks, in the stock market, because they are experts in the stock market. I am focused, obviously, on real estate. So there's a couple of ways that you can invest your retirement money. One of them is a mortgage, which I'm talking about tonight. The other way is by investing with an exempt market dealer. That's where you take your registered funds in a self-directed account and you invest in a company that buys real estate. So those are the two options when it comes to investing in real estate. Like I said, if you've been told you cannot do this, then you need to make sure and get a second and maybe third opinion, because most people do not know how to do this. Most people. So up next, I'm going to be talking about some real deals that I've done. We're going to talk about two strategies: a long-term strategy, a longer-term strategy, and a shorter-term strategy. In yellow on the presentation, we're going to be talking about rules. Rules are what you must follow. And in blue, it's going to be suggestions that I use from doing this for decades. I'm going to be talking about advantages as well as risks for both the lender and the borrower. I'm going to talk about some of the likes and dislikes that I think about the system overall. And I'm mostly going to be focusing on Olympia Trust. My first RSP investor was Patricia, and I already owned this house, and it was in the neighborhood of Beverly in northeast Edmonton. I already owned this house for a couple of years. Patricia, I belonged to a real estate networking group just like this group. I frequently got up and spoke. I always did open mics. I always tried to volunteer. I tried to network as as well as absolutely possible. And I got to know Patricia over time. One day she walks up to me. She said, I've got $25,000 in my RSP and I want to invest them with you because I like you. And I can see that you take action and I respect you. And I was shocked. I hadn't done RSPs yet. I had raised money, but I had not used RSPs as a mortgage. They talked about it a lot in my real estate group, but I'd never, pulled the trigger. So she comes up to me and with basically a $25,000 gift as far as I was concerned. And I said, okay. And I had to figure out really quickly how to do this. So I talked to other people in my network. I talked to Valden Palm. Valden is still a big real estate investor back in Edmonton. And he walked me along a little bit on how to do actually a Canadian Western Trust mortgage. And I asked some other people in the network how to do it. So, folks, that's a big value that I got from being in this network, is because I was basically guided by the people that I was surrounded with. And it started me on, obviously a very long journey. I've been doing this for 2 decades now, and I've raised around $3.5 million in RSPs. Question.
Is there, unless anybody else wants
No,
to
nobody
talk.
else. No, I'm scanning the room. Nope.
Okay, good. Do they have to be accredited?
So the question is, do they have to be accredited? The lender?
Yeah.
No, the lender does not have to be accredited.
Okay.
No.
Probably because it's going through the trust, right? It's going through the...
I don't know why they don't
Yeah.
have. I don't know why they don't have to be accredited. I just know that they don't have to be accredited. Yeah. So at the time, that's what was going on. She had $25,000 to invest. It hadn't been doing anything. I might say this more than once. I want to make sure and say it once, and that is, most of the people that I work with have come up to me and said, my registered funds are not growing unless I put money into them. So they're not growing because they're growing in the stock market. They're not growing usually because they're not being managed well. In fact, a lot of times people's money stays completely stagnant, and it's very upsetting. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. That's exactly what was going on with Patricia. She was a secretary at a company. She'd stocked away $25,000 over the course of, I think, 20 years. And it hadn't grown. She's like, I'm really frustrated about this. So I knew her from networking. We'd gone to lunch. I knew her. She knew me. Now, one of the rules is it has to be arm's length. So you cannot be married. You can be married. You cannot borrow or lend to somebody that you're related to by blood, so no relatives, or your spouse, so no spouses, and you cannot own a company with the person that you lend or borrow from, okay? It's called an arm's length mortgage. You don't even technically have to know them, but I suggest, so that's why it's in blue, I suggest you know them. I knew Patricia, she knew me, we were familiar with each other, but we were not related, we didn't own a company together, and we weren't married. Me and Patricia were not married. Shocking, I know.
You never know these days.
You just never know. I know, you got to be careful. No.
It's a different generation.
It's a different generation. You're totally right. So, some of the things that have to be in place. The property that you own has to be in your name. So this can't be an agreement for sale. It can't be a lease option. It has to be, the title has to be owned by you. It also can be owned by a corporation, which can come in very handy. Rule number 2. So that's rule number 2. The owner, only the registered owner, can borrow these funds. Question, Ivor.
So you're probably going to get to this. I'm probably putting the plug in front of the horse here.
Good.
The cart in front of the horse. But if you do it through a corporation, is there tax advantages, or am I going way down the road?
Oh, if you do it, the question is, if you do it through a corporation, are there tax advantages? And for us, yes, but I'm not an accountant.
Right.
But there's definitely a tax advantage for us because we get to write off all the interest that we borrow. We also get to, yes, there's certainly tax advantages. to borrowing it in a corporation for us, but not necessarily for everybody, so you got to check with an accountant. The first mortgage on this property in Beverly in Northeast Edmonton was $98,000. The original purchase price was $150,000. So we'd already owned it a few years. We put a little bit of money down. We assumed the mortgage, and it had a balance of $98,000. We put Patricia's RSP for $25,000, and we paid her 10% annually for a term of 3 years. At the time when we borrowed it, the value of the property was worth $200,000. So rule number 3 that you need to know, you cannot borrow more than 90% loan to value. And a year ago this time, it was 100% loan to value. So Olympia, I'll tell you right now, Olympia can change their rules from week to week. It happened to me recently. I had things borrowed at about 95% loan to value because we were going to do some rezoning to make it more valuable, and I couldn't do that. So I had to rejig all of my paperwork. It was frustrating, a little bit time consuming, but it was still no bank qualify money, which I'm going to talk about too. So my point is, it can't be more than 90% loan to value between the first and second mortgage. So in this case, what's the property worth? It's worth $200,000, right? Right here. So, and that's a $98,000 first mortgage and a $25,000 second mortgage. So the total debt on it is $125,000. So I'm well within the range, even back then, of 90% loan to value. Not a problem. All right, so here's what we did with the money. We used that $25,000 second mortgage to buy a house in St. Albert. And this is how it performed. And we didn't borrow at 90% loan to value. However, there are ways to spread your risk, and I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit. So we bought one house. It cash flowed $200 a month. We walked into $20,000 of equity, and we didn't have to qualify for the financing. So both of these deals were no bank qualified deals. We didn't have to qualify for the financing that was there at the time because we assumed those mortgages. We were title owners, and it was a low risk deal because we were walking into the Edmonton property in Beverly already had a lot of equity, and this property had $20,000 of equity in it. What you need to do a deal like this is you need to complete paperwork that requires your name or your company's name and address, the name and address of the owner of the property, and the account holders, whether it's an RSP, TFSA, or whatever kind of an account it is. It needs to be in an Olympia Trust self-directed account or a self-directed account that does mortgages. You need to know the amount of the loan. You need to decide on the rate, and you need to decide on payment frequency. So payments can be made monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. Those are the options that you have. You also need an appraisal of the property. They will also lend based on assessed value, but appraisals tend to be for more. You need the legal and municipal address of the property. You need the information of the lawyer that is preparing this mortgage. A lawyer prepares all of these Olympia Trust mortgages, so this is not just a handshake between two people. Lawyers are involved, and everything is done properly at land titles, and everything is written up just like if you were going to borrow money from a bank. But there are some big differences. In a situation like this, Patricia came up to me and she said, "I want to be your bank." And I said, "Great, I want to be your borrower. and we put the mortgage together. I didn't have to qualify for the financing that she lent me. I paid her 10% on her money, so she did very well. And I secured it on real estate, so it was very secure. So she got a high rate, high security, with a lot of equity in the property, which is very, very low risk. Most people don't know about this because the banks don't want you to know about this. The banks want you to be buying their RSP products, of course, because they make money when you buy their RSP products. I'm going to be talking about that in a second. All right, so you need your terms. You need to know how much time I'm going to be borrowing this money for, how frequently the payments are going to be made, and you need to have a minimum payment every year. Regardless, if I'm paying somebody 10%, but I want to do a balloon payment, which means I pay a lot of it at the end, I still have to pay a minimum amount every single year. And that changes. When I started with Olympia, the minimum was 2%. And I could pay a balloon payment, again, meaning all the rest of the interest was due at the end of the term. Now, they changed it. They changed it along with, right about the time that they changed the loan to value terms. They changed they changed it from a minimum of 4% per year that you have to pay to the lowest rate competitive rate you could see at a bank. So I've been using 7.2 lately. I know that I could use less, but I usually pay the full cash flow no matter what. But if I'm paying a lower amount now so that I pay the rest later, which again is called a balloon payment, and you can do. You need more detail on that, you just got to reach out to me. The biggest point is that you need to know that the rules change. So before you do one of these mortgages, you've got to read up on the rules. It's never that much information, but oftentimes it's very important information. And that way you don't get stuck doing your paperwork more than once. All right, rules 4, 5, and 6. Andrew, I know we have a very intimate room today. Come on in. Come on in, have a seat. So I've already started, but we're recording it.
Perfect.
So no worries. Okay, rules 4, 5, and 6. You can't charge more than 30% annually. Andrew, have you done RSP mortgages?
I haven't. No, I don't.
Okay.
I've been on the periphery of some, but
Yeah.
no, I haven't.
All right, well,
Jumped
anyway.
into that deep end, yeah.
So I can't remember what rule 1, 2, or 3 was. Rule 1, you have to be the title owner. Rule 2, you have to, rule 1, you have to be an arm's length, which means you can't be related by blood, marriage, or own a corporation. Rule 2, you must be the title owner. So this can't be a lease option where somebody else is on title, or an agreement for sale where when somebody else is on title. Rule 3. Did I just skip rule 3?
No, you were.
Yeah, no more than 90% loan to value. Okay? No more than 90% loan to value. Okay. Rule 4, 5, and 6. It can't be more than 30% annually. Your rate. So you have to pay a minimum, but you can pay up to 29.999%. I don't know why you would. It'd have to be a smoking good deal, but some people do. Again, a balloon payment. A balloon payment is when you pay some of the payment now, but you still owe on interest, and you pay it all at the end. Okay, so let's say you have a $100,000 RSP loan and you pay 5%, but 5% minimum, but you're agreeing to pay them 10% overall, right? You'd pay $5,000 the first year, $5,000 the second year, and let's say it's a 3-year term, $5,000 the third year. But the 3-year term ends, okay, they've already made 15. You have to pay back their original $100,000 plus the other $15,000 that you owe.
Okay.
Is that clear as mud?
Yeah.
Clear as mud?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. If you need help, again, been doing this for a long time. Right now, I'm paying a minimum of 7.2 because they insist on it being a comparable to a bank rate. I know there are lower rates right now than 7.2, but at the time of me making this presentation, it was like 7.2. It was crazy. So it's just high compared to what we've seen in the past several years. So they change their rules. So where to find the rules, I am going to have in this recording, and I also, and I'll send this out on emails, exactly where the links are to get all the paperwork that you need in order to do an Olympia Trust mortgage. So this is what happened. We sold it 3 years later, and this is our exit summary. So over those 3 years, those next 3 years, so this is a house in Beverly in Edmonton. Andrew, I don't know if you know Beverly.
I don't know that one, no.
Your stuff's more like in West
Yes.
Kelowna,
Yeah.
St. Albert and stuff. It's in the northeast area. It's kind of a rough part of town. Regardless, it's probably gentrified now, but anyway. In 3 years, the debt got paid down $8,000. So that's a profit center. It cash flowed $7,200 over those 3 years. And we had an overall profit of $70,000 because we bought it for $150,000 and we sold it for $220,000. Follow me on those numbers? Okay, so they add up to $85,000. Sounds great, right? $85,000? Well, we had to pay some stuff. We had to pay our $25,000 second mortgage back, right? And her RRSP interests grew $7,500. And we had a realtor who paid the realtor $11,000, $700 in legal fees, and we had a $2,500 prepayment penalty. Okay? So we had to pay all these things. These were all of the expenses that we had before that, after the $85,000, for a total of $50,000 of expenses. I mean, it sounds like a lot, right? And it kind of is. So we have a net $35,500. Total profit $85,000, expenses $49,000, $35,500. What did I mention before, though? What did we do with the money, Ivor? You remember?
What did we do with the money?
What did we do with that $25,000?
Sunk it back in the RRSP.
We bought this property in St. Albert. Yeah.
Oh, right, sorry.
So it's okay. It's a lot. It's a lot to process. This is not a test. I promise you.
I feel so tested right now.
No, you're not
I
tested.
feel like I'm being
You're
drilled by the school teacher.
You kind of, I guess you kind of are.
Young man? In
Guess
the
you
corner.
kind of are, man. So, get your calculators out. We're going to do an ROI right away. It's going to be so fun. I'm such a math geek. We bought this property in St. Albert with the second mortgage that we got. Okay? It was a 3-year hold. In that time, we had $10,000 of pay down. A $60,000 profit because we bought it under market and it appreciated so much. And $3,600 of cash flow over those 3 years. We sold it privately, so there were no realtor fees. $700 legal fees. Can you imagine paying $700 these days? Wouldn't that be nice? And another prepayment penalty. The market was hot. It was hot. We felt like it was just a great time to sell. So on this property, we made close to $70,000 because we used the $25,000 from the other property.
So what's the real profit, Julie? Like after the tax man gets his?
Oh, I don't talk about that right now. But yeah, the tax man's gonna get it. But it is 3 years, so it's not
Right.
active income.
So you're not flipping. You're not.
No, these are holds. These are hold examples. Okay. So let's calculate the ROI. So what was the investment total? Our investment was $32,500 because I borrowed $25,000 from Patricia and I paid her $7,500. And I held on to that property and it cash flowed and the first mortgage was paid down and then we sold it for profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I bought this other property. It cash flowed. It had some mortgage pay down. It still had like prepayment penalties and things like that. But we also sold it for a really large profit. So that total profit is, go ahead guys, get your calculators out. I know you have them on your phones, or can you? So the return that you calculate, I like ROI.
Yeah.
It's not everything, but I like it. Return was 69.9. That's one of them. Plus 35.5. What's that equal?
42,499.
What does it equal? 69 plus 35.
Are those the numbers? Am I punching them right? No.
Oh yeah, 69,000. Close. I see where that was, so. Let's see. 105,000. Good. So that's the return. You just say equal. Now it says what? 105?
105,490.
Now what's the investment?
32.
32,500. So you divide it. Okay? Divide that 105 by 32,500. There's other numbers involved, I know, but it's not going to set it off that much. So what's the number that you got,
I
Ivor?
screwed it up, Julie.
Let's see. That's okay.
No, I totally.
All right, so start again. It's good. This is really good. 35,500. It's fun.
Why
Learning
do I
is
feel like
fun.
I'm in college again? Okay.
Oh, it's a calculator.
Yeah.
Plus 69,900.
Plus 35. What was it? 35.
35,500. Yeah. You got all that? I'm coming to check your math.
No.
Mrs. Hoffman. Yep. Divide it. Okay, that's your return.
Yeah.
So, calculation for return on investment is return divided by your investment. So you say divided by 32,500. Right? What you got there? What does 3.24 mean in percentages?
32%.
It means 324%. It's okay. It's okay. But that's what it means. 324%. Now, it was over 3 years, right? So what is it really? So it's 324. You can just take 324 now. Start at the beginning.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at what.
Are you checking your Instagram,
was.
Ivor?
No, I have a message from a client.
Good. 324 divided by 3, because it's 3 years for both of them. That's how it lined up. But you can guess.
Yeah.
300 divided by...
Yeah.
Divided by 3?
Yeah.
108.
108% annual return on investment. For me. And my partners, we had partners on all these deals. And what did Patricia get? She got 10% a year. And she was thrilled with that. I mean, I made way more, yeah, but there were a lot of factors involved with that. That was like appreciation, which doesn't always happen. Cash flow, not necessarily all that strong. A lot of things could have gone wrong, but there's a lot of wiggle room. Even if I'd done half as well, it would have been 50% a year. So, I mean, it can give you power to buy more real estate, or to put repairs in, or to do some improvements, especially here in Kelowna with what they have now. Now, it's good if you have a second mortgage, these kinds of mortgages, if it's behind it first. Duh. But it's even better if it's behind it first, where there's a lot of equity, where maybe you've just bought really well, or you've owned the property for a while. So lots of folks, I'll give Kelowna as an example, have a ton of equity because values went up so fast. So there's a lot of folks out there who have a lot of equity in their homes, and could use this strategy to get like a second mortgage on their house and maybe go buy some real estate. So it's definitely happening in this region, actually in a lot of regions throughout Canada. Or a property that you've had for a while, maybe it doesn't have, maybe it doesn't have a ton of equity like what happened here, but if you've had a property for 10 years, then that mortgage has gotten paid down pretty quickly. So those are good candidate properties for these kinds of mortgages. Or if you're going to do improvements and make the property worth more. So I'm going to talk about that right now. What you don't want to do is get one of these mortgages and buy a Corvette, as pretty as it is. Unless you're going to rent it out, like our OREIG sponsor, Flexies with Shripad. He rents vehicles, and they provide a bunch of cash flow for him. So if that's the case, fine. I prefer real estate for obvious reasons. Now, this is a form of refinance. When you pull equity out of a property, so you can refinance and make your first mortgage bigger. That's usually a lot of paperwork, qualifying for financing, a lot of red tape. Things change in an instant, and there's usually a big chain of command when it comes to trying to refinance property. Or you can put a second mortgage, RRSP, on a property. It's also a refinance. You're going to pay a little more for the interest, but it's easy compared to trying to get these days A-type financing.
There's an option to get a HELOC too.
Sorry?
You could get a HELOC as well.
There are rules around having a RSP mortgage behind a HELOC. I don't think they allow it. I haven't done that. So full disclosure. Good. Worth looking into. Patricia and her husband ended up after the 3 years, she retired, and she started using her part of what she used her RSPs for was to go on a trip around the world with her husband. And he died a couple years later. And she called me up and she said, we wouldn't have been able to probably have as nice a trip if we wouldn't have been able to grow our money with you. So that, you're having an impact on people's lives. And it means a lot to people because, again, a lot of people that I talk to, most people that I talk to, if they're reaching out to me about their RSPs, it's because they're not growing. So it's more than just the money. It really feels good to help people, people that have faces that you see, in a room like this. So borrower, obviously there's advantages. A balloon payment is nice because it kind of helps with today's cash flow. And it is available. You can work into the paperwork pretty much anything, and I never pay a prepayment penalty. And my lenders know that. You don't have to qualify for financing because it's like, Ivor, do you want to borrow my RSPs? And you say yes, and we get the paperwork done. You can put in great terms that are a win-win for both of you. And usually in a major bank, you've got some, just boxes that need to check. And it's a great relationship for repeat business. And again, helping somebody with their hard-earned savings that they work hard to put away. Of course, there are risks for the borrower. Lots of equity can be lost, especially if the market goes down. It happens. It has happened. It's a higher rate, so you're not paying bank rates. You're usually paying double that, especially if it's in second or third position. Down markets suck. Maybe you're not able to sell when you want to, and maybe you run into a situation for whatever reason that you're unable to pay out. It happens. It's definitely risky for borrowers and, of course, lenders. So high growth, predictable outcome, low risk. I say this because it's on real property. You can drive by it and say, that's where my retirement money is growing. Which, again, good security, dirt, bricks, and sticks, and you can see the investment. Risks, of course, it can go badly. Somebody could decide to buy a Corvette instead of putting it into another, cash flowing asset. The mortgage, the market could go down. You could be unable to sell. Just what I went over with the borrower, all the same things pose risks to every lender. And worst case scenario, if you are a lender in second position and you're not getting paid, you have to foreclose, which is very costly, frustrating, and it takes a long time. So those are definitely risks in place. Short-term example. This is good for a reno, a refi, a BRRRR, or a change of land use, which is huge here in Kelowna because the province is trying to increase densification. The city is trying to increase densification. And so if you are trying to create housing, you can use RSPs to help do that, because usually there are application costs, reports that have to be done that are usually can be tens of thousands of dollars. So, but it can have great results. Okay, and I'm going to tell you about that. What we did. So again, this is a example of a condo that I still own here in Kelowna, Tamarack Terrace. It's right down the road, across from the Landmark Center. It looks different now because right after I bought it, they gave the whole building a facelift. So now it's this new modern looking building. It's blue and it's got brand new windows, brand new sliding glass doors. It's totally been refreshed. I lucked out on that. I completely just lucked out on that. So, Rule 7. Olympia Trust mortgages or self-directed mortgages can only be in first.
Are they still the go-to
for me?
For all the, but yeah, for.
It's the only one I talk about.
Yeah.
So I don't really, and the question is, are they still the go-to? They're the only ones I talk about. They're the only ones I hear about.
Yeah.
So maybe they are. They certainly are for me.
Yeah. Well, I think they had been for a long period of time.
Yeah, they've been great. Yeah. Other than they changed the rules a whole bunch and it drives me crazy.
Right.
But it keeps me on my toes, keeps me sharp, dear Lord.
Yeah.
Keeps my hair gray underneath this blonde. So yeah, first, second, or third. You can't be in fourth, so it's just something to keep in mind. So most people, I would say, although I'm meeting more and more who are different than this, and I'll talk about them, most people have 10, 15, 30, maybe 45, maybe 100 at the most people in their retirement savings plans. Most people. So what I was able to do before they changed the rules was do a syndication. I was able to combine a bunch of people, 6 people in first position to buy this condo. It was a renovation project. It was a BRRRR. So buy, renovate, rent, refinance. 6 people between 20K and 35K with a mixture of all kinds of different accounts. You can't do this anymore with different people unless you are a mortgage broker. But I did recently find a workaround. Okay? I'll tell you what happened first. Because syndication is still possible for people for private people. It is a little bit different. I bought this property with a partner that I knew was going to be able to refinance it. That's very important because it was a BRRRR. We purchased it for $155,000. At the time, I could borrow 100% loan to purchase. So I could have borrowed $155,000 to buy this thing. So Rule 8 is, that's like Rule 4, it doesn't matter. At the time, this is what I could do. I could borrow at 100% loan to purchase. All I got for first mortgage though was $120,000, but I could have got the full $155,000. And I paid my first mortgage people into their RRSP accounts 8%, which is a good rate, which especially was a great rate back then in first position. Nice, safe, secured. I got a second mortgage on it though, for cash, $80,000 cash, because my plan was to renovate it, and all it really needed was a refresh. It didn't need a new kitchen. It didn't need a new bathroom. It did need new floors, paint, baseboards, and I painted the kitchen, and I painted the bathroom. So I put this funky bathroom paint and really tough paint that makes it look new, but it's not new. So I did it on the cheap, big time. The after repair value, after I refreshed it, was $280,000. So I bought it really, really well, but it was awful. It was smoky and gross, and they had birds and squirrels and rodents and pets. Like it was a real gross place. So we took it on, renovated it, and refreshed it to $280,000. This happened over the course of 6 months. In that time, between my cash investor and my RSP investors, debt had accumulated in first position to $124,000. And I set the terms for annually because I knew I'd get it done in a year. I lucked out getting it done in 6 months. Part of the reason why I got it done in 6 months is because I didn't change out the bathrooms in the kitchen. That would have taken way longer. And I would have had to get building permits and that kind of thing. You don't have to get building permits if all you're doing is replacing flooring and baseboards and paint. So it's a huge time saver. Second mortgage accumulated to $84,000 in that time, for a total of $208,000 of debt. Now that's the debt that's on this place in 6 months. I remember I bought it with a partner. The partner was on title. The partner did all of this borrowing. And then the partner refinanced it. Because what we did was forced appreciation on refreshing it. So this is where I talk about rezoning. If you buy a property that you can put $120,000 into all of the city applications, and it's worth like $900,000 now, but you turn it into something that can become like 4 single-family lots, then you've created something that's worth like a single-family lot in a good area is anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000. So $128,000 can turn an $800,000 property into a $2 million property. Okay, it's the same thing of what I did with this condo, and it's in big demand all throughout the Okanagan. So my refinance expenses were like an appraisal, legal fees. I got new debt, refinanced 75% loan to value because the new value is $280,000, and the new mortgage is $210,000. So it paid off all the first mortgage RSPs. Everybody's money grew nicely, safely, and securely. And it paid off my second cash mortgage, who rolled into another deal. And all the RSP investors rolled it into another deal too. So that was pretty cool. So that's a good way to do it as well. The trouble is you can't mix a bunch of people together. Did I qualify for financing? No. How many lenders did I have? I had you remember? How many?
Or in this one?
In this last one. I had 5, I had 6, but yeah. And can I do something like this again with 6 different lenders? No. I can't, not unless I'm a mortgage broker.
But
Mortgage.
you have a workaround.
Now I have a workaround. I'll tell you what it is. And I discovered this by just trying it out. So I am getting contacted by more and more people these days who have done a great job of saving, or they have a great employment matching program. So this is Brendan. He had 3 accounts, all in his name. $200,000 saved in his RSP, $100,000 in his TFSA, $70,000, which was a LIRA which was employer matched. He put in 35, and his employer put in $35,000 into his account. So his accounts were doing well primarily because of the employer matching. Otherwise, he saved $300,000 over the course of about 20 years as an electrician. He calls me, and I was working with him actually as a coaching client at the time. And he wanted to try to buy a storage facility. It's kind of a long story. He ended up going out on his own as an electrician, and now he's happy because he's free and he's not under the thumb of an employer anymore. He picks his hours, he picks his jobs. He's a happy guy. And I mentioned LIRA, or I mentioned RRSP investing in one of our coaching conversations. He's like, wait, you can do that as a mortgage? I said, yeah, you totally can. And he's like, well, I don't know what I've got, but I know it's not doing well, because I know the only time it grows is when I put money in, which is every year for the past 15, 20 years. So I'm like, okay, let's talk. And he had these 3 accounts. So I'm like, well, I'm going to ask Olympia if they'll allow this, since it's just you and it's all your money. I asked, can I syndicate these 3 accounts? They said yes. So this is the exception. If you've got somebody that has money in a bunch of different accounts, which I wouldn't say most people, but some people do, it's definitely worth looking into. I could have bought 2 of these condos with what he had. But what we did do with him was we put him in second on a land development, use some of that second mortgage money, not even all of it, about half of it, to complete the rezoning process for a 22-unit townhouse development, which increased the value of that property by $1.5 million, because it's all done and it was all paid for by his retirement money. And now he's made over $35,000 with us, and it was never growing before, like never.
And at what point did you pay him out there? Like, did you get it?
With refinance.
So you did refinance?
Yeah. So, and it could have been done through a sale.
Yeah.
Right. But his money helped us create this. And it's pretty unique to the Okanagan. It can happen in Edmonton. Edmonton's very pro-development. There's regions of BC that are very pro-development. Here is very pro-development. So, you kind of got to be careful. You don't want it in a city that's like, I don't want any more new houses, right? So you got to be careful. But this worked out extremely well. And it's a great exception to the rule, because I just thought I couldn't do syndications anymore. Turns out you can. And guess what? Olympia could always change their minds and say no. So
this is the rule by Olympia. It's not
yes,
federal
it's
proposal.
no. Oh no, it's not a regulated rule. It's the Olympia regulated rule. It's not a government regulated rule. Olympia said, I think they had a lot of people with these multi-syndication, and perhaps a lot of them weren't going well or something like that. So just started, okay, we're not doing that anymore.
But Western, you said, also doesn't as well.
I don't know if Canadian Western does syndications. I've only done a couple with Canadian Western. I really only focus on Olympia now, because I feel like I'm getting really good at that at Olympia. Well, no, I am good at Olympia, except when they change the rules at the last minute, and then I look like I'm terrible at Olympia. But that's okay. I don't care. It's fun to learn. It's an adventure.
The 370, did that all go into zoning upgrades?
No, about half of it.
About half of it. Oh, okay.
About half of it. But we got, it's always better to have more than enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. We weren't sure. Yeah.
And what is that cost at the moment?
For what we did was around $150,000.
About 150.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that includes like drawings and
And reports, downhole drilling.
Yeah.
For land assessments,
Yeah.
economical or environmental impact studies, traffic studies.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's exhausting. It's a big list, and it's really expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
We also bought a property that got a stamp of rezoning before we bought it. So we didn't have to go through any of that expense.
Yeah.
But it's not always that way. And just like we improved that little condo, you can use RSPs to improve something else. And that's how I recommend you do it. If you're going to borrow the money, make sure, and I'm going to talk about this, but make sure it's doing something to grow the project as much as you possibly can. Make sense? And there's a recording. Don't worry about it.
No.
I can see you thinking and thinking.
Well, I'm just
it's
trying to
good.
conceptually understand what you did. So you bought a property, you rezoned it, then with the rezoning, you got more equity out of the property? Or
And we used the RSP money, the registered money, to
re-
do all the
rezone
applications.
process, right?
The rezoning process, and then it takes a long time, so you got some holding costs. So there's, can build and build and build. Yeah. So it's good.
Was it the same property? Did you do anything to the property?
No, we just did that to that property.
Just the rezoning?
Just the rezoning to that property.
Okay.
Yeah. But we'll borrow a second on one property to rezone another property. There's equity. We will. And I always I'm going to talk about this. Okay? So, again, Brendan's words, the only reason his portfolio is growing is because this is what he said to me. The only reason my portfolio has grown is because I add money every year. It has done nothing for 10 years. But his account managers have made 2% on his balances, at least, every year. We'll talk about that in a second. So many things that I'm pushing. I feel like I'm pushing the goal posts. All right. So when you're a lender, if anybody's listening to this who is a lender, you've got to stay alert. Whether it's one of your accounts or a couple of your accounts, you've got to stay alert. If you've got an account that's going to fund around a certain date, let's say the end of February, you want to make sure you're not out of town, or if you are out of town, you're able to sign a DocuSign. But best case is making sure you're around, you can answer your phone, you can check emails. During this condo burr, I had 6 lenders. One went camping, like dry camping, no cell service. Another one went to work, and he was on shift work, so he was working nights, and I could barely get a hold of him during the day.
Right.
And it caused delays. Luckily, I bought it in a bit of a lull of the market, and I was able to get some extensions, and I needed extensions because I had trouble getting a hold of my lenders. So if you are a lender, you got to be like on high alert, period, till the thing is done. Also, insurance. Many insurance companies will not lend and cover second loss payable, and even fewer will cover third loss payable. So if you're thinking of get a second or third mortgage, you want to check with your insurance company and make sure that they will cover it. And if they don't, you've got to get a different insurance company, because Olympia will not fund unless you have the property insured with the registered account owner as first, second, or third loss payable, wherever they happen to sit. Follow me? You bought, Andrew, you've bought houses, you have to have your insurance in place before you can buy it, right? Yeah.
There's got to be markets that do that.
Oh yeah, there are. It's just that we found out at the very last minute that there was a problem with second. We've never had a problem with second before in insurance for a second loss payable. We found out within 3 days of funding, and it was tight. So we had to really scurry to get an insurer who would cover second loss payable. Yeah. So it's just something to keep in mind. When you're doing a purchase with these kinds of funds, it's super high pressure. I prefer not to do it. But sometimes you gotta, can't steal in slow motion, as Ron LeGrand would say. If you've got a deal in front of you that you need to move on, because it's like a pocket listing, and you know you're getting it for like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 below market or even more, you got to do whatever it takes. But the pressure can really suck. It can really suck.
I
So
love that you can't steal in slow motion.
that's not me. That's Ron LeGrand. But
I'm
yeah.
totally stealing that.
Okay. Yeah. We do it quick. It all worked out. It's an adventure. It's just real estate, you know. It's nothing's the end of the world except the end of the world. Now, in a case like this, in a fast deal, a high pressure deal, us as borrowers had low overhead because we pushed all the payments to balloon, so we could focus all of the capital that we had into the actual renovation that was happening. There was always cash available, which came in handy, because I went through a couple of renovators, and I've got a whole other presentation on that. It is called "That Might Be a Red Flag," but that's for another day. We had no prepayment penalty. We didn't have to qualify for any of this financing that we got for it. Great terms. We did multiple deals with all of the lenders. We still work with most of them in this condo. Of course, again, it's a higher rate. In this case, it was a lot of people to coordinate, but you can't do it anymore, so it doesn't really matter. But you still got to coordinate things if there are multiple accounts going on. It can be stressful. The market can go down. Of course, the same as all the risks before. Unable to sell, unable to refinance, unable to pay out. And you've got to pay at the end of the term, you know? So you got a lot of pressure in a BRRRR scenario or in a rezone scenario. You know, if people are expecting their money, say, to go onto another project, you really want to do whatever you can to make sure that it's paid out on time. For the lender, again, high growth, predictable outcome. In this case, the lender was in first position for this example. It was good security, good little condo unit, and again, they can drive by and touch it and see it and say, hey, there's where my money is growing. There's where my, where I work that overtime, it's growing right there. Things could go badly, things could sit, rezoning could take a while, permits could take too long, unable to sell, unable to refinance, and ultimately, if you are a lender stuck with a property, you may have to foreclose. And I know people who have had to do that. And it's not fun. It's a lot of not fun.
Well, nothing comes without risk in life, though.
That's true. It's just, these are regular people. They're not banks. So as nice as it is that they're not banks, it can be really tough because they're not banks, and they're not used to this kind of thing. All right. So as a lender, it's just advice for lenders. You want to know the plan. Like, what are you going to do with my money? You going to buy a Corvette, or what are you going to do with it? So I always, whenever I'm presenting to a lender, I explain to them what I'm doing with the money. Sometimes I'm using it for the property. Sometimes I'm using it so that I can improve another property so that my overall net worth goes up. And overall, me as the borrower, I'm usually borrowing as a company, but it'd be on a project that the company owns, so that my value goes up in general, because all ships rise with the tide, right? So I explain what's the money used for. Sometimes it's all of the holding costs, zoning applications, renovations, improvements. That means hopefully value is being added. But you got to keep in mind, sometimes you get a junky renovator. Sometimes zoning can take forever. Sometimes rule change. Sometimes the mayor changes. When the city of Kelowna mayor changed, it changed the dynamic of real estate development in the region. It really did. I'm not saying good or bad, but it's changed, and that's something that can impact any project. The government, and existing equity. You want to always know what kind of equity is involved, what's happening now, and what is going to be created, and why do you say that? Because it's great to have a goal to have your money grow, but a goal without a plan is just a wish. Again, not mine. It's this French poet guy. Now, challenge for anybody who's listening who is an RRSP account owner or LIRA or TFSA. It's a little challenge for you. Call your advisor and ask them, what's the plan to grow my money? See what they say. In all likelihood, your money's growing in multiple companies, some kind of mutual fund plan, and then, okay, what are the company's plans to grow my money? And none of them will be able to say. So it's another reason why I really like real estate, because if we do this, A, B, and C, and everything goes to, and things don't go to shit, pardon my French. If A, B, and C happens, based on what we know, well, property is going to be worth this much, and we're going to be able to pay you this much because a property is now worth this much. And your account manager should be able to tell you the same thing. That's just my humble opinion. Equity is absolutely key. If you're a lender, you want to know how much equity is in this project, or how much is going to be created, or how are you going to make sure that you're paying me back. So, things I like about RSPs being in the market. I know 2 people who have just their money in the market. One is a guy named Jason. One is a TD banker. His name's Todd. And they do very well. Why do you suppose the TD banker does so well?
Access.
Well, he's self-directing, he's not paying fees, and he's probably being smart. And
Yeah.
just putting in an index fund and leaving it, is what I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, he could be, he has different access. Employees, people who are higher up in banks have different access to different plans than Gen Pop, the general population. So, and he just told me that they've always done well, so he didn't want to touch them. Hey, that's great. And it's great to have money in the market for diversification if that makes you feel more comfortable. And job matching is a gold mine because you don't need it to grow in whatever fund it's in. If your employer's going to match it every year, that's 100% return on your investment every year, basically, from your employer, not from the fund necessarily, but that's incredible. That is a reason to keep a job, depending on where things are at. So mortgage management expense ratios on average cost 2.23% for folks and their money. So if you have $100,000, it's costing you $2,230 on average every year with no guarantee of growth. They get paid that whether it grows or whether it shrinks. So there's not a lot of incentive to make your money more valuable. And I have it's from 2019. I doubt things have changed, but I could be wrong. Then I saw this the other day on my Facebook, or 525, with a little asterisk, high interest savings. And it only applies to new deposits and is good till the end of next month, which is fine. It sounds pretty good. It does. So 5.5 on the bonus offer, asterisk, it ends March 31st. And it does, it looks fantastic. But there's terms and conditions. So let's look at those terms and conditions. This is regular rate. They're giving you an extra 3.75 of the bonus rate, which is, yeah, that sounds really good. And I have until March 31st to do this. But now there's a PDF I gotta read. So here it is. The offer runs from November 1st, that's last year, until March 31st, the depositing period.
Max deposit.
Well, yeah, there's all this max deposit mumbo jumbo, which is fine. Now, March 31st is the depositing period. So if I deposit it now, it's going to make the bonus for 6 weeks. And then it's going to go back to the regular rate. That's how they get you. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but read the fine print. So I already said this, but it's like, I get paid no matter what. It frustrates me. Definitely frustrates me. If I do a deal and I've got to pay my lender, but things go sideways and I can't, there's no money left over for me, it doesn't matter. I've got to pay my lender. I don't get paid no matter what. So, expect delays. If you're moving your registered funds from someplace into a self-directed account, I have had it take as much as 10 months for that to happen. It was with an investor named Sam. We started it. They changed. The manager changed. Then the new manager had to get all caught up with what was going on. And that manager went on vacation. And then got all caught up. Spent a whole bunch of back and forth trying to talk her out of doing this. And finally, 8 months later, she had her money in a self-directed account. Her money. So, absolutely expect delays. Don't have a property picked. I don't recommend you have a property picked that you're relying on registered funds in order to do. The best way to do it is on property that you already own. It's really the best way. So, all these people have money. I mean, there's so much money on the sidelines. It's not on the sidelines. It's being invested in the machine, and it's seen as untouchable by people who have them, registered funds. Sean is somebody who bought a rent-to-own property, and he applied to buy it. But I always asked, what kind of down payment do you have? And he said, well, I have $25,000 in my RRSPs. And I said, ugh, well, you cannot use those to buy your own property. You cannot use those to buy a rent-to-own. There are programs for first-time home buyers to be able to use their registered funds. But in this case, he couldn't use them. I did say to him, though, Sean, it's your money. You just need to talk to an accountant about whether or not it makes sense for you to take it out. You have a good job, you have this money saved. And he's like, well, it's my money. I said, yeah, it is your money. Maybe go have a conversation with an accountant. So he went to his accountant and he said, I want to buy this rent-to-own house. This is the only way that I'm going to be able to do it because she needs a down payment. And I've got it in my RSPs. So his accountant, fortunately, was a pretty creative guy. And he said, well, you've been at this company for 10 years, and I know you have a good relationship with your boss. Why don't you go ask him to defer some of your pay until next calendar year? That way, yes, you will get a tax hit from withdrawing your RSPs, because it'll be taxed as income. But if he defers some of your pay, and you can handle it, I know you can because you do well enough. You guys are going to have to be tighten up your belts for a few months. If he'll defer your pay, then you probably won't pay much more than you would have paid anyway. So he goes to his boss and he said, will you do this for me because I want to buy a house? And his boss sure, I don't care. I'll pay it now. I'll pay it later. It doesn't matter to me. So he made it happen. I did not tell him to do this, but that's how he got into his house. And he would not have been able to buy it otherwise, for sure. He didn't have cash saved. And then Cindy, lovely lady, had her money in self-directed accounts with CIBC. No, she had it in self-directed accounts. I don't know with what institution. And she grew her money from $200,000 over the course of about 5 years to $350,000. All of their retirement stuff. And they started getting busy with sports and kids and school and carpools and soccer practice and all that kind of stuff. So she handed all that money over to CIBC. This is not bad-mouthing CIBC, for the record, everybody. Actually, it doesn't matter. I already said CIBC, that's who it was. So handed it over, and it shrank over the next 5 years by $50,000. All that work she'd put into it. The stock market didn't do well. It's not CIBC's fault. I'm not suggesting that. But she was doing well on her own. She said she can't open her statements. Still had a good chunk of money, like $250,000. She's like, I can't even open it because it makes me sick to think of this. So it happens to people. So my theory is a lot of folks have wealth, but they bury their head in the sand because it's 9 times out of 10, it's not a pretty picture. As a borrower, again, things can get delayed for all kinds of reasons. So we had this one investor, her name was Kim, and she was working on getting her money over to a self-directed account. And it got into a self-directed account, it was ready to go, and we had a major delay on the purchase. Something came up, we had to delay it out like 6 weeks. So we paid her out of our pockets a month and a half of interest because she was willing to wait for us. And we just did it out of, we just sent her an e-transfer. It didn't go into her account. It didn't go into her account. We just sent her an e-transfer. So, when you can, it's really important to go the extra mile because they'll remember that and they'll want to work with you again. Also, RSPs versus working with people instead of institutions. Well, Candace was a lady who invested in like 4 properties using her RSPs in Saskatchewan, and the market tanked. It just tanked. So there was no equity. If they were to sell properties, she would get a fraction of her investment. So I actually introduced these people, and they got to know each other, and she decided that she wanted to work with them. It was a little bit of a liaison, and she decided, I want to work with these people, but the market tanked. So they ended up working together and had to make what was a 3-year deal, and they turned it into like an 8-year deal so that the first mortgages could all get paid down and the market could rebound a bit. She could have foreclosed, but she wouldn't have seen a penny. She really had no choice but to work with these people. So the difference is she didn't foreclose, but a bank would. Because with major banks, there's just a point of no return where it just goes into foreclosure. Also, a great thing about working with just people that people that you're familiar with, is the renewals are like a 1-pager, and you don't have to pay. You can decide together what the renewal rate's going to be. You can decide together if there's going to be an application fee or not. You can just negotiate this with a person versus a bank that says pick A, B, or C. You really don't have much of a choice, and it's very simple. It's very easy, and it's a great win-win, for everybody. So, recap. Examples of long and short-term deals. I've talked about most of the rules and some of them that have changed in the last year. Suggestions, advantages, risks, things I like, dislike. I did only talk about Olympia Trust because I just don't know any other programs well enough. And the links will be around here of the paperwork that you need with rules and that sort of thing in this recording. So, my favorite quote from Abraham Lincoln: "Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle." Anybody want to do an open mic?
Yeah, I'll do
Okay, great. Come on up. And then we'll have questions, if you guys have questions.
So, big crowd here tonight.
Yeah, big crowd.
My name's Ivor. I'm with Summit Insurance. We're a property liability insurance broker. Maybe the fastest growing organic broker in British Columbia right now, or one of them. When Julie was talking about the second or third mortgages, I know my specialty is a lot of clients come to me if they're tied up, if they are having a hard time getting insurance. Just because I've been in the industry for 20 years, I have relationships I can lean on. So a lot of times people are thankful that I can get them coverage when maybe other people can't. So it's like anything else. Is it mortgage brokers will tell you, or any kind of broker, it's all about relationships and experience rate. So yeah, we do pretty well.
Awesome, great.
Thanks.
And I think we already shouted out his email address, and it'll be in the links around here, around the recording. Andrew, you want to do a open mic?
Sure.
Please welcome Andrew Hansen, long-term real estate investor turned property manager and OREIG sponsor.
Probably the hot topic for us right now, being in the residential property market, is dealing with a lot of people that are transitioning from short-term rentals to long-term rentals. We're having lots of discussions for people that have had existing ones, people that have closings coming up. So if you're in that position, or you want to chit chat about what your options look like, happy to have that discussion. I guess
Awesome.
The email will be in the
Email will be in the links, and if you go to OREIG website, there's a direct link to Andrew.
Yes, perfect.
And if you can't find either of these guys, you just reach out to me.
Yeah, perfect.
You know my contact.
Perfect.
And I know these guys, and I know what they're up to. We have a whole, I'll include in the link our podcast that we did about
absolutely.
real property management executives and your guys' background. These are experienced real estate investors, so they're great people to work with if you're looking at a property manager. That was really good. Anything else?
That's about it.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have any questions? Any other questions about this stuff?
Seems like the biggest risk would be if Olympia changes the rules.
So the question or comment is, seems like the biggest risk is if Olympia changes the rules. And I would say when, not if.
Right.
I'll tell you, every time I do one of these, there's at least one thing that's changed. And I do them frequently.
So how do you navigate that, Julie? Like, is it just you have to change the deal?
Oh, you know what's so great about it? It's a sales thing. I warn people ahead of time. You know, I do my presentation and I go over all the risks that could potentially happen, and then I say, but another thing that can be frustrating about this is there can be delays, and sometimes Olympia can change the rules, so there's probably going to be a lot of back and forth, a lot of excitement. Do you think you're going to have a problem with that? And I've never had anybody say, yeah, I've got a problem with that. Everybody's always said, no, it's fine, I get it. So that way, when it comes up, if it comes up, but it really is, it's usually something, they're ready for it. So I just handle it proactively, let my lender know in advance that that's happening. Yeah. So that's and there's I haven't seen anything that I haven't been able to find a workaround, to work within their rules. So, yeah, so far so good. Touch wood. Right?
Yeah, I know. I think it's in their best interest to make things work. I mean, they've been doing it for a long period of time. They do private equity stuff, and
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
knowing the sandbox, right?
Yeah, knowing the sandbox and understanding that it's a little bit hectic sometimes, exciting. I like to call it exciting. Sometimes I'm pulling my hair out. Sometimes I'm throwing paperwork all over my office. I try to do that in private. I scream. I screamed because I've been so frustrated. And, but that's my job, right? I can handle that stress. That nobody else needs to deal with that. Yeah, so once I've calmed down, I give somebody a call and say, hey, we got some excitement going. And they usually laugh. Okay, what do I got to sign now? Okay, and works out well. And the same thing happens with mortgage brokers and banks, by the way.
Yeah.
Constantly. Yeah.
You've never had it scale a big deal or anything. There's always something that you find.
I've never had anything that wasn't overcomable. Let me think. Oh, let me tell you, this is an interesting, very exciting story. I had a lender with a deal. And I must be blocking. It doesn't matter what his name is. Here's the lender, and he gets paperwork. And he has to sign it, and he reads it, and he can get it. He gets it checked by a lawyer. A lawyer prepares it, and I mentioned I don't have prepayment penalties, and his money turned around very quickly. It was in 3 months. He tried to charge me a 3-month prepayment penalty. I'm like, but this isn't what I owe you. This is what I owe you. This is what we went over together. He's like, no, this is ridiculous. I want to be making at least this. And when you go to pay somebody out, they fill what's called a payout statement. And a lender can put whatever they want. They could put $1 million. And then you have a problem. Now, chances are that's not going to happen, but in this case, it did happen. He was upset. He didn't make as much money as he thought he was going to make because I paid him sooner than he thought. The deal happened faster than we thought. The challenge was we're paying him from the sale of a property. So this guy's buying it. He was buying it with cash. So I had to pay the lender, who, I'll call it what it is. He turned on me. There's just no other way to put it. And I hired a lawyer, and I paid my lawyer $1,000 because he owed me, because I overpaid him $10,000. So I paid a lawyer $1,000, and she took him to small claims court for me, and I got paid. I got that money back. But because it was a sale and we had an unconditional sale, we said, yes, you can buy it for this amount, regardless of how much we owe or how much one of our lenders thinks we owe. Had to be done on time, or we were going to risk getting sued by the buyer. He was like moving from a hotel because he didn't want to rent a place, blah, 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 blah. Moving from a hotel, paying cash, needed to move in on the day, had movers hired. So I had to pay this lender, and I had to go get my money back in small claims. I did it with a lawyer. I didn't try to do it myself. I know people do, and some people get a kick out of that. That sounds like a kick in the teeth to me. So, yeah, that was squirrely. But that's one thing in a lot of 3.5 million. One little thing. Anybody can handle that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too disastrous.
No, it could have been, really, it could have been worse. He could have demanded even more. But, yeah, he was somewhat sane, I guess you could say. But he was in the wrong, and I got it back. Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions? No? Okay, we have April 14th. Which is not the third Thursday. So anybody listening to this, it is not the third Thursday. It's the second Thursday of April because, oh God, it's March. Shouldn't say April 14th. Well, only you guys know it said April 14th.
Yeah.
It's March 14th. Okay, correction, March 14th, because the second half of March is always spring break. People usually scatter. It feels like it's spring break right now here. Anyway, regardless, March 14th, Julie Jeffries, fantastic presenter, and she talks about how to succeed in business using personality profiles. So she spoke to us last year. That was your first event.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And
Downstairs.
wasn't it good?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. We had a little dungeon party down in the basement of the Best Western because it's a long story. Anyway,
Sounds like a long
she has 18 topics that she talked about. Last year she talked about 6 of them. So So she's going to go through another 6 or so. It's fascinating. Everybody gets a free profile so that she can interpret it for you, and then she explains like what certain things mean. It helps you understand yourself. It helps you understand others, and her whole company that she works with companies to help with teamwork. So it's just fantastic information. She's also a very successful real estate investor, so she'll hopefully tell some stories about her adventures over the last year, which I know firsthand are pretty exciting. So, great lady. It's gonna be a fantastic event on March 14th. And I'll let you know next month what April, May, and June will look like. July for sure is going to be a party. And we'll go from there. So thanks a lot, everybody, for coming out. And we'll see you soon. We'll see you next time.